His name was Dennis, 69 years old, retired after 32 years as a high school principal, and on a Tuesday morning in October, he was standing in a Chevy dealership, signing paperwork on a $61,000 truck. He'd earned it, he told himself. 32 years of early mornings, difficult parents, budget cuts, and thankless board meetings. 32 years of putting everyone else first. This truck was for him. 4 months later, Dennis called his daughter and asked if she could help him with the electric bill. That story is more common than you think. Not because Dennis was careless, not because he was foolish. He was a smart man who spent his whole career managing budgets, solving problems, looking after other people. But retirement is different, and nobody taught him the rules. Here's the thing. There are two types of retired people in America right now. The first type is comfortable, no financial stress, sleeping well, living life on their own terms at 75, 80, even 85 years old. Not rich necessarily, just secure. The second type is quietly struggling, checking account balances at 2 in the morning, avoiding conversations about money, working part-time jobs they didn't plan on, wondering where it all went. The difference between those two groups is rarely income, rarely inheritance, rarely luck. It's 7 specific habits, 7 categories of spending that drain the second group completely, while the first group passes right by them every single time. I'm going to take you through all 7, and I'm warning you right now. Number 1 is the one nobody ever sees coming, the one that hits closest to home. So stay with me until we get there, because that's the one that might actually change something. Let's start at number 7. Number 7, brand new vehicles. Dennis's $61,000 truck was worth $43,000 before the end of his first year of owning it. He didn't wreck it, didn't neglect it, just drove it. To the grocery store, to his daughter's house, to church on Sundays. $18,000, gone, in 12 months, without a single accident. That's how depreciation works. And most people have a vague awareness of it, but they don't actually feel it until something like Dennis's truck happens to them. Wealthy retirees feel it viscerally. They treat depreciation like it's a physical wound. So they buy vehicles that are 2 or 3 years old. Certified pre-owned. Same features, same reliability, same comfortable seats. But some other person already absorbed that brutal first drop in value for them. Then they drive it for 10, 12, sometimes 15 years. Oil changes on schedule, nothing fancy. And the money they saved, still sitting in an account, still growing. The neighbor who can't make his electric bill drives a 2-year-old leased Cadillac. The retired couple worth 2 million lives drives a paid-off Honda with 140,000 miles on it. Tell me which one looks wealthier at first glance. Tell me which one actually is. Number 6, extended warranties and unnecessary insurance. There's a moment that happens at almost every checkout counter in America. You've picked out your item. You know what you're spending. You've made your decision. And then the salesperson leans in with that particular expression, concerned, almost apologetic, and says the words, "Did you want to add the protection plan?" Here's what they don't tell you. Extended warranties are one of the highest profit margin products in all of retail. Stores would not push them harder than they push anything else in the store if these plans actually paid out. They don't. The math doesn't work in your favor. Products break early, when the manufacturer's warranty still covers it. Or they break late, long after every protection plan has expired. The window where a warranty would have actually saved you almost never happens. Wealthy retirees follow a simple filter. Insure what would genuinely destroy you financially. A serious health crisis, your home burning down, a major liability lawsuit. Those things deserve insurance. A $400 microwave. If it breaks in 3 years, just buy another one. The rule is clean. If you can't replace it without financial strain, maybe reconsider buying it. If you can replace it, you don't need the plan. Number 5, trendy home renovations. Carol spent $74,000 on her kitchen in 2022. Quartz countertops with a specific gray veining she'd saved to a Pinterest board for 2 years. New cabinetry, a farmhouse sink, under cabinet lighting. The whole thing. She was proud of it. Her friends came over and said exactly the right things. 2 years later, her real estate agent told her the kitchen would help, but not as much as she'd hoped. Buyers in her neighborhood were looking at the layout, the square footage, the roof condition. The countertop trend had quietly shifted. Here's the brutal number. A mid-range kitchen remodel in the US typically costs between $40,000 and $80,000. Homeowners, on average, recover about 60 to 65% of that cost when they sell. That means you can lose $20,000 to $30,000 on a renovation that felt like an investment. Wealthy retirees fix problems. Leaking roof? Fix it. Electrical panel from 1978? Update it. Foundation cracking? Get it done. But they do not tear apart a functioning kitchen because a television network decided open shelving was the aesthetic of the moment. Some of the most financially secure retired people I've come across live in homes that look exactly like they did in 2004. Their net worth looks nothing like 2004. Number 4. Luxury status goods. Here's something that took me a long time to understand. The wealthiest retired people I've ever encountered are often the hardest to identify. No logos, no flashy watches, no designer anything. They drive ordinary cars, wear ordinary clothes, eat at ordinary restaurants. You'd pass them in a grocery store and feel nothing. And yet, here's what actually happens to people when they accumulate genuine, lasting wealth. The need to broadcast it quietly disappears, because once you've actually achieved security, the opinion of strangers stops mattering. You're no longer performing anything for anyone. The $300 designer t-shirt exists for one reason: to tell people who don't know you that you can afford a $300 t-shirt. But once you're genuinely comfortable, you realize something uncomfortable. The only people consistently impressed by luxury logos are people who can't afford them. People who have real wealth see the logo and think one of two things. Either you're carrying debt you're not talking about, or you care deeply about what strangers think of you. Neither is a compliment. Wealthy retirees buy quality: a coat that fits perfectly and lasts 15 winters, shoes that are well made and comfortable, items chosen for how they perform over time, not for what they announce to a room. Number 3. Expensive hobbies. I want to be clear about something. Hobbies matter enormously in retirement. Retirees who stay socially connected, physically active, and mentally engaged live longer. That's not opinion. That's outcomes data across population studies. The problem isn't hobbies. The problem is choosing hobbies that cost as much as running a small business. A golfer who plays regularly, maintains a club membership, and buys equipment can easily spend $20,000 to $30,000 a year on the game alone. A boater maintaining a mid-size vessel, slip fees, fuel, maintenance, insurance, winterizing, can spend similar amounts without blinking. Now here's the part that stings. Those same retirees would have had an equally fulfilling retirement: hiking trails, growing vegetables, playing pickleball, building things in a woodworking shop, or learning something new at a public library. Hobbies that might cost $500 a year total. The difference over a 25-year retirement isn't small. It's the difference between financial freedom and financial dependence. And here's the quiet truth. Most people who pick expensive hobbies in early retirement would be just as happy with something simpler. The expensive version just felt like what retirement was supposed to look like. That image cost them everything. Number 2, percentage-based financial advisors. I want to be fair here. There are financial advisors who provide genuine, meaningful value, who talk clients out of panic selling during market crashes, who catch tax mistakes that cost more than their fees, who provide real peace of mind. This isn't about them. This is about a fee structure that most people never actually look at closely. 1%. It sounds like nothing. You have $600,000 saved. 1% is $6,000. A year, fine. Except here's what most people never calculate. That $6,000 you paid in fees also can't grow. And next year, The fee is 1% of a slightly smaller base, and the year after that, and compounding works in reverse now. Over a 25-year retirement, that quiet, invisible, automatic 1% fee can consume between $200,000 and $350,000 of wealth. Not because of bad markets, not because of reckless spending, just because of a percentage, sitting there in the background. Every single year, wealthy retirees who've figured this out do one of two things. They manage their own money, low-cost index funds, one or two funds, about 20 minutes of attention per year, boring, effective, and devastatingly simple. Or they use a fee-only fiduciary, a flat hourly rate, a fixed annual fee, real advice, real value, transparent cost. You pay for what you use, and nothing silently drains from your account when you're not watching. Every dollar you keep in fees is a dollar that keeps compounding for you. That math runs in both directions. And number one, the one that nobody talks about, the one that takes down more retirements than bad markets, bad advisors, bad decisions combined, emotional purchases. Let me tell you about Margaret, 71 years old, widowed 3 years into retirement. Smart woman, careful her whole life, had done most things right. But retirement without her husband was lonelier than she expected. And somewhere in that loneliness, a pattern developed. Online shopping mostly, a new throw pillow, a kitchen gadget she saw in an ad, books she never got around to reading, a stationary bike that became a very expensive clothing rack. The grandkids visiting meant $300 of toys before lunch was finished. Nothing outrageous, nothing that felt like a problem in the moment. But at the end of the year, her financial advisor showed her the numbers. 12 months of small purchases she couldn't really account for. Just over $14,000. She sat very quietly for a long time. I didn't even enjoy most of it, she said. I barely remember half of it. That's emotional spending. It doesn't feel like a crisis when you're doing it. It feels like comfort. It feels like a small reward. It feels like something to look forward to, but it doesn't actually fix the feeling underneath it. The loneliness comes back. The boredom comes back. The low-grade anxiety that settles in when life loses its structure. None of that gets solved with a package on the doorstep. Wealthy retirees developed something that looks like self-control from the outside. But it isn't really that. It's clarity. They got clear on what actually made them feel better. Real hobbies for the restlessness. Real people for the loneliness. Real structure for the anxiety. And they learned to pause, just for a moment, before any non-essential purchase, and ask one question. Will I still be glad I bought this in 30 days? That's it. One question, 30 seconds. You'd be amazed how often the honest answer is no. And you'd be amazed how much a single honest no repeated over time adds up to. Dennis eventually sold the truck. He took the loss, bought a used pickup, solid, reliable, a few years old, and recalibrated. He's fine now. But he tells that story himself whenever someone asks. I thought retirement meant I'd finally get to buy what I always wanted, he says. Turns out the people who really wanted retirement figured out they didn't want most of it. The retirees who stay financially free didn't get there by earning more than everyone else. They got there by developing a quiet, almost invisible resistance to spending that everyone around them thought was normal. While their neighbors were financing new cars, remodeling kitchens, and paying fees they never tracked, they were keeping the old car running, leaving the kitchen alone, and watching the account grow. Boring? Maybe. But you know what's boring in a different way? Working a register at 68 because the money ran out. If this opens something up for you today, if one of these 7 made you think, that's worth something. Subscribe to Money IQ Pro for clear, honest videos about how money actually works. No hype, no impossible promises. Just the real mechanics of building and keeping financial security. And before you close out, ask yourself honestly, which one of these 7 is yours? Not to feel bad about it, just to know. Because knowing is where it starts.